Welcome to codeLive. My name is Julian Duque. I'm a principal developer advocate here at Salesforce. And today we are continuing with our project. We are building a CLI application, a command line application using oclif. So I'm very happy to be back before Dreamforce break. Next week, we will not have a codeLive because pretty much myself and all of my team is going to be super busy at Dreamforce in San Francisco. If you are going to Dreamforce, please let me know in the chat. I will be at an area called the Developer Grove where we have a lot of great content for you all developers. So if you are going to Dreamforce, don't forget to go to the area, say hi, feel free to reach out to me and to the rest of my team, and we will be more than happy to connect. If you cannot, go ahead and register for free at Salesforce Plus. There will be some content for you. The developer keynote is going to be a stream at Salesforce Plus, and you can take a look at all of the great things that Salesforce have for developers. It's going to be amazing. If you are attending, please go ahead and reach out to us. And please, we are today also streaming simultaneously on both YouTube Live and Twitch. Go ahead in the chat and say hi if you are connecting from Twitch or from YouTube. We are going to be reading your messages. Thank you very much for joining me in this moment. And let's start learning how to build CLI applications using oclif. So let's start doing a recap of what we did on our previous session. All of the sessions are on our YouTube channel. You can go to the Salesforce Developers YouTube channel, search for codeLive. That's going to be the keyword, and you will find all of the different live sessions that we have been doing. And there you will find the building an application with oclif. So oclif, it's the Open CLI Framework, is the same framework we use here at Salesforce to build both the Salesforce CLI, which you might have already used, the sfdx or sf commands, and the Heroku CLI. If you are using Heroku, the Heroku command is also built using the CLI framework. We are using this framework that uses Node.js and TypeScript or JavaScript to build CLI applications. What we are building is a command line application to manage tasks, kind of like a to-do list. We will integrate this application with Salesforce tasks. So initially, what we are going to do is create an application to create those tasks locally. I'm going to be storing those tasks on a local database. We are going to be using SQLite, which is a database that stores information on a file on the file system. It is not a network database, so I don't need to perform a connection to a Postgres database or something like that. No, everything is going to be stored on a file, but I will be able to access the data by using SQL commands. So it acts as a regular SQL database. Very, very good for embedded applications like this one. And we are going to be using the better SQLite 3 library. We saw earlier on other sessions when we were discussing Apex for Node.js developers that we can use SQLite 3. It's the library for Node.js. There is a better version. It is faster. That's the one that we are going to be using for this project. And we already installed all of these on our code repository. I'm going to be building this project live for you later. I'm going to be publishing the source code to GitHub so we can take a look at the progress, and the link is going to be shared on the description of the video. So right now the repository is not created, but I'm going to be pushing the code to GitHub and sharing the code there so we can keep track of the progress, maybe if you want to build along with me. Okay, so let's review what we did. I have Visual Studio Code here open. Visual Studio Code here. Let me close. So we used the oclif generate command to create this project. You can take a look at the documentation, pretty much how to start a new oclif project by running npx oclif generate. It will create a new Node.js project, and then you will be able to start creating or generating the commands. So we started with a document. Let me open the preview, Markdown preview. Okay, we started with a document designing our experience, how we wanted our CLI experience or the commands we were going to implement. So far, we have designed tasks new command and tasks list command. So task new receives certain arguments and flags. And we saw the difference between an argument and a flag. Arguments are positional options that I pass to the command. For example, subject here is going to be the first argument of my command, and the comment is going to be my second argument of the command. Flags are non-positional. I can add the flags wherever I want in different order, and they are identified by using either the double dash for the full name of the flag or the single dash for the character version or the alias version of the flag. And we saw that also we can have either string or Boolean flags. So the flags that I'm going to be passing, I can pass a string value, or it could be a Boolean value as well. And that's it so far. We will need to implement other commands later, like complete or update or delete. We also discussed synchronize when we want to push my local tasks to Salesforce and download the status of the tasks from Salesforce as well, but that's going to be the last thing we are going to implement. We are not going to be doing that today. Today we are going to be focusing on the local functionality, how to create a task and store it locally, and how to list the tasks that we have local as well. Perfect. So we created two commands, one command for the list and one command for the new task. So far, new is the one that has the logic. Okay? So we saw that with the description property on the command class, we can add a helpful message to describe what these commands do. Then we specify different examples how to use the command. Here we are showing you that there are like different ways how can we call this command. For example, by passing the subject email and defining the priority and the status, or by passing the subject call and comment, and then the priority and the status on a long and short version. I can change these to a short version as well. And we define the flags. We have priority and status. Both are strings. One is the short character P. The other one is the short character S. Both of them have descriptions, and both of them have default values. So if I don't specify those flags, I already have a value that I can use. And then we specify the arguments. We have the subject, which is the first one. And remember that I mentioned that this is positional. So the order of the arguments in the array are going to be respected. So this is going to be the position of the argument. The first one is the subject. The subject is required, and we have specific options. Call, email, send letters, send quote, and other. Why those? Because those are the pick list options from my interface. So when I am creating a new task on Salesforce, I have those options. Call, send letter, send quote, and other. Let me refresh because I added email, and email is not here. Email should be here. Not yet. I need to update something on the setup, but I added a new pick list object that it seems is not here. But the idea is that those fields will map up to these values. Right now, to simplify things, I have these options hard-coded, but to make things smarter, when we start doing the Salesforce integration, we will fetch these values from the UI API. So if we change something on our Salesforce org, or when we authenticate to our Salesforce org, it will fetch the real values that we have there. So when we create tasks, obviously it's going to be giving us the options that we want. And the other argument is the comment, which we don't require, and we are not going to be specifying any default value for the comment. Run is the method that we execute when we run the command. So here we are parsing both the arguments and flags, and then we can access those values by accessing them through properties on our objects. How can we test our development version of the CLI? Let me open the terminal here. Remember that we execute the development version. If I execute the development version of our CLI, we have the CLI output. We have the description of our topics and commands. For example, we have tasks here. It doesn't have any description. We are going to be adding that description later. But if we go to the tasks topic, which is the one that has all of the different tasks command, we see both the list command and the new command. The new command now has a description. So oclif, it's giving us auto documentation by default and auto help by default. We are not writing the help. We are not writing this output. oclif is giving us that for us. If we go and take a look at new and print out the help, you can see that now it's giving us a good way, a good documentation of how to use this command. It's giving us the description of the flags with the default values, the shorter and longer version, and it's giving us the examples we provided on this array. So as much information that you can give to your users, the better the developer experience is going to be. And this is all about DX, developer experience, or UX for the CLI. Cool. Now let's start implementing the logic. So when we try to create a new command, since we are not providing a flag, we get an error. We are missing one argument. The argument is the subject. And then we can provide a subject, for example, subject, and it will give us another error. It will say, hey, we are expecting that the subject will be one of the different values, call, email, send letter, because those are the options we specified. So what we can do here is either type the value as they are expecting, or provide the user a way to input this information on a better way. If we know that we have a certain specific set of values, we can ask for those by using uh, by using an utility or I will say a CLI component that can ask for certain specific values. So that's what we are going to do before implementing the logic. Let's improve a little bit this experience for our users. And I'm going to be introducing a new library, which is the inquirer. So oclif, oclif already have some CLI components. For example, prompting. It's useful to prompt information, but very basic information like an input text or a password. But it is not giving me like a cool list of options. For example, I'm showing you a demo here. If I want to ask for a specific information, I can prompt that information by using this component. But oclif also recommends to use inquire if I want, for example, ask for multiple options or for multiple choices. And here we are checking that demo. For example, we can use inquire to ask for the subject. What do you want to do? A call, an email, send letter, or this is other type of task. So let's use inquire to perform this operation. Go ahead and on Visual Studio Code, let's install inquirer. Fantastic. And here we are going to be importing inquirer. So import. Let's import it as default. Perfect. And how this work? Let me take a look at the documentation. So if I don't have the subject, I'm going to be pretty much getting the responses or getting that subject from a prompt. Okay, awesome. So this is going to be like this. So give me a second. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to get the subject from the arguments object. If subject doesn't exist, instead of showing an error, I'm going to be asking the subject from inquirer. So let me get the response and inquire. Let me do a prompt here. And I'm going to be setting that this is a type list. It's called subject. The message is what type of task do you want to create? So let me see to make sure we are aligned with this new task. Let's ask for subject. Subject, and now the choices. So I'm using GitHub Copilot, and pretty much GitHub Copilot is auto-completing this code for me. This is amazing. I didn't need to type anything. And that was good. So response should have the value. Now let's do this. So change subject to let, so I can reassign it, and subject could be response subject. And now this log, it is log. I forgot this info, sorry, info. Creating a new task with subject. Blank line before this statement. Okay, I need to add a blank line. Info doesn't exist. I forgot how to add the logs. Let me confirm. This log, not this info, but this log. Perfect. Okay, I am not using the flags yet, but now inquirer needs to be working and asking me for a subject. So let me see. If I run the new task by passing a subject, it will go directly. Oh, I have an error. Tasks new call not found. So I'm having an error right now. How can we take a look at the error by enabling the debug? So we can take a look at more stuff that is going on in here. Awesome. So I'm trying to import inquire and it is failing. And it is also telling me that I need to install the type. So, okay, let me install the types for inquirer. So this is a very good recommendation. If you try to execute the command and you don't see anything, you enable the debug flag and it will show you the full stack trace of the error. So that way you know what's going on. So let me see if this is failing again. This is failing again. Okay. The property prompt does not exist on type inquire. So I am importing inquire wrong. And I'm going to be checking at the original documentation because I'm following the oclif one. Oh, this is easier. It is import inquire from inquire. So that's a good suggestion for my oclif friends. This is open source, by the way, so I can go ahead on the oclif project and submit an issue to change this to the proper code. If you want, go ahead and submit this as an issue, or you can submit a pull request as well. It's a very good way to contribute to an open source project. Oclif is open source. So we found a documentation issue here. Nice. Okay. I fixed that issue. I saved. Let me go ahead and call the command. And we are still having an issue. What is that issue? It says required of ES module, inquire. Oh, change the required of inquiry.js to a dynamic import, which is available in all common JS module. So this is failing here. Now we'll need to figure this out. I love when this happens because you know that we are not scripting anything. We are trying to figuring things out on the fly. Okay. So why this is failing? So the name of the project is inquire, not inquire.js. Let me go to the repo to see if we have if we can find something. If you have any suggestions in the chat, Bala, what do you mean by my screen is not clear? It is too small, or do you need more zoom? Tell me so I can fix that issue. So let me see. Normally, it should have examples here. npm install import inquirer from inquire. Okay. So the version 9 is the one that supports ESM. So 9 is good. This is failing, and I'm importing inquire as it should be. And this is ESM. So why it is failing? I might need to go and file an issue because this should be loading. Let me go ahead and try to debug this. So leave inquirer.js. This is not using using common.js. And in the package JSON, let me specify that we are only using type module to see if that fixes the issue. No, that doesn't fixes the issue. Well, it seems I'm not able to use inquire for some reason. Let me go ahead and take a look at the issue if there is something there, or do a quick search in Google, because if this is failing, I don't want to be wasting a lot of time, and then offline I might take a look at what's going on. And we ignore inquire and we use prompt instead to ask for the subject. And then we start implementing the logic, the SQLite logic, because this is what we want to do today. Okay. So I'm going to be ignoring inquire for now because it is not working. This is not working for us today. So instead of using inquire, let me change this to use the CLI from oclif. So how to use the CLI from oclif is by using the CLI UX from oclif core, CLI UX from oclif core, and do this is a little bit slow here. For some reason, Visual Studio Code is blocking sometimes. I don't know what type of process is doing. Oh, it is when I'm going to disable this extension. I have an extension that calculates the module the size of the module, and that it's taking a lot of time, and I don't need that. Import cost, disable import cost. That's the one that it's blocking my IDE. Okay. So about that, let's go and continue. So let's delete this code because this code is no more. This code is no more. Now we are going to be asking the subject from the CLI UX prompt, and it's going to be, what is the subject of your task? And now, let me delete this. This should work. So definitely need to check why inquirer didn't work, because it should work. Okay, I'm pausing the call works. If I don't pass the call, it should prompt. And in the prompt, I need to remove the require, so it prompts the information, because I'm implying the require on the logic, and this is with an await. Okay, now it should ask, what is the subject of your task? Okay, I need to call. Perfect. Now this is working as expected. If I pass something that is wrong, it should now validate the option. We will need to implement that logic later, but let's work on what's important, which is the logic, the database logic. Okay, now let's do the database logic. For the database logic, we created a folder called live when we are going to store the type of the task. We are using TypeScript, so this is going to be the shape of the task object that we are going to store in the database. It's going to have an ID. This ID is going to be an auto increment number that's going to be created by SQLite. We need the subject to store the subject. We need the comment field to store the comment. We need the priority field, and we need the status field as well. Perfect. And then we need the taskDB class. The taskDB class will have certain methods: create task, list tasks, get task by ID, because I will need that for completing a task or for deleting a task or for updating a task to get the task object, and a complete task method. For now, let's implement the create task method. This is going to be a class, and we will perform the setup of the database on the constructor. So define a constructor. And here is where we are going to be creating our database. So what we need? We need a file name where we are going to store our database. Remember that I mentioned SQLite, it's a file-based database. So let's use this task class on a way where we can specify a different folder. Why? Because maybe I want to write tests that will not override the production database, and I will specify a test folder that I can delete after it. So let's receive a data option here, yeah, as a string. Perfect, that's what I need. And then we need SQLite, so let's import SQLite. So we are going to use better SQLite 3 from better SQLite 3. Awesome, that's what we need. And let's create a private property for the client. So it's going to be our client. Here we are going to store the instance of the client, and this will be of type better SQLite 3 database. So this is going to be our client, the client we are going to be using to perform the operations. And here we are going to create an instance of that database. So the client is equal to better SQLite 3 and the directory. But that directory, I don't like to use this. Let's use Node.js to create a path. So we are going to import the path utility from Node.js path. So what is this? Sorry, this is without the quotes. So what is path? If we go to the Node.js documentation, there is a path module, and it is an utility that helps me working with paths, with operating system paths. So this is going to give me utilities to perform paths operations that are either in Windows or in Linux or Mac. The operation that I'm going to be using is join. It lets me join paths on a safe way. So that way I can perform my path operations without having differences in the operating systems. So I'm going to be joining the data dir with my tasks database. So I have a data dir, which I'm passing to the constructor, and the task database that I'm going to be creating. What if that folder doesn't exist? I need to create that folder so I can store my database. So I have two functions in Node.js that can help me for that. On the file system module, I have exists sync that can check a path, a directory, or a file to see if it exists. If it doesn't exist, it will throw false. If it exists, it will return true. And I have the other method, it's make dir sync, which receive a path and an options object if I want to create that folder recursively, for example. So those are going to be two useful things, because if this data dir doesn't exist, it will throw an error. So let's import the fs module from Node, or I just need the two methods, exist sync and make dir sync. Those are the two methods that I need from Node.fs, and let's use them. So if data dir doesn't exist, let's create that, but create it recursively. So this way, when we run or when we execute our command for the first time and that object doesn't exist or that folder doesn't exist, it will create it for us, so we can store that database in there. We give a space here. We are setting this up here. Awesome. We have an issue here. This is can only be imported using the smodule interrupt flag. Smodule interrupt flag. This is an issue that we need to fix on the TypeScript configuration. Okay, module interrupt flag true. Let's see if that fixes the issue. Meet additional JavaScript is to support. Yes, that fixes the issue. Okay, so always read the documentation. Could not find a declaration file for module better SQLite 3. Run this command to install it. So let's run this command to install it. So I'm following the errors. This is why it is always recommended to use Visual Studio Code. It has very good extensions for building Node.js applications. Okay, I have what I need. I have the task type, and then I need to create my database. So let's create a method. Let's call this method setup. This will return void. It's a method just for, wow, this is amazing. But no, stop. And let's call setup after we create or construct our class. Then we need to create our database. So we are going to use the client, the database client that we have, and we are going to execute a query. So sure, we are going to create a table. If that table doesn't exist, and why we use the if not exists? Because we don't want to be overriding the table. If we do something, create something like this, create table tasks, every time we execute this, we are going to be overriding, or maybe we will have an error. If we add the if not exists, that way we know that we are not overriding anything. So we need a primary key. Do SQLite support auto increment? I don't know. Let me see. SQLite 3 auto increment. So it seems SQLite 3 supports the auto increment. Let's use it. Why not? We will store the subject as a text, and it should be not null. We will store, I forgot, the priority as a text. It should be also not null because we have a default value. And we have a status as a text, and it should be not null. Let me confirm with the type, subject, comment. We have comment as well. And comment text. And it should be null. We don't need to have a comment as a required value. So we are creating our table here. And now what we need to do is to perform the create task code. This is giving us here a lot of information. So should we use this and read what it's giving us here? So awesome. So better SQLite 3 have an API documentation that you can go ahead and read. It uses prepared statements to perform operations on the database. So if we want to do an insert, here is going to create a prepared statement. For example, insert into the table cats, and these are going to be the two columns that we are going to insert with the values, and then it performs either the transaction or the operation. So this is what it is doing here. The only thing that Copilot got wrong is that the variables needs to be with an add character, not a $sign character. Run, it got it right. So we need to execute run to store the task object, and it will return the task and the ID. ID needs to be type number or big int. Okay, number or big int. Perfect. Now we fixed this issue. Let me confirm. Last insert row ID. So we are getting the ID properly. Awesome. And that's it. We need to specify the ID as something optional, and the comment as optional as well, because we might not need it. And those are the only two things that we need to do. So the ID optional, because when I'm creating the object, I don't know the ID. And then we create the task, and it returns the task that it was created. This should work. One last thing is that data dir folder. So normally CLI applications have its own configuration folder where they store data or they store configuration values. So oclif have a configuration object that you can access from a class, which is this config, and this will give you certain properties. For example, a catch folder or a config folder or data folder if your application is going to store data. I'm going to be using this data dir folder so I can store my database in there. So that's going to be the argument to the class I'm going to create while creating the instance of the task DB to store my task. Okay, so now that we have the logic for create and setup, let's go to the task command, the new one. Let's import the tasks DB from tasks DB, and let's import tasks like the task type. We can rename this to be singular, right? It makes sense to be singular. And this is plural, tasks DB. Okay, I like it. Tasks DB, task. Now that we have this, we can create a private client. So let's call it DB. And we are creating a new instance of the tasks DB class. And okay, it's import tasks DB from. Perfect. And we create a new instance and we are getting the data dir property from the configuration option. So this is giving us a place where we can store our database file. Now what we need to do is creating a to-do object. Okay, so let's create the to-do object. So, sorry, not the to-do object, the task object. So let's create the task object. It's of type task, and it will have a subject, priority from the flags, a status from the flags, comment from the argument if it has one, it doesn't need one, or empty if it doesn't need one. And I need to create it. So dv create task, and now I can pass the task. And I can reassign this to the original task. Let me fix my issues. I can reassign this. Task is assigned value but never used because I am reassigning here. Or let's do this const completed, not const created. Task is never used, but I'm using it here. And let me see why it's showing that error. Task created successfully with subject and ID. Created ID. Yeah, the only thing that we have here is this weird error. Use const. Okay. Perfect. That's what we are getting. We don't even need this. We just need the ID. Because we already have the subject. So we just need the ID. We are getting the ID. We create the task. We are telling them that we created the task. And let's see if this works. I don't know. Let's see if this works. It looks good to me, but we might have some issues. So bin dev tasks new without this. So let me prompt. Okay, now we have an error. And let me see what error do we have. Remember, debug equals asterisk before executing the command so you know the error. Okay. Task. A function whose declared type is neither boy nor any must return a value. Get task. Okay, this is giving me trouble because these methods are not implemented because they need to return values. So let's return. No, they are going to be giving me trouble. So let's comment all of that. We don't need that complaining now. We are just focusing on one thing that already works. Okay, let's create a new task. Let's hope it works. Now, SQLite error near comment text. It could be null. I forgot that. So now execute. Near comment. Oh, I'm missing a comma here. See? Always a typo. Now, what is the subject of your task? We need to do a call, and it says, task created successfully with subject call and ID 1. Then we are creating another task, which is going to be an email. Task created successfully with subject email and ID 2. So we are creating tasks, but where? Where are those tasks? Let's take a look. So the data there, how we know the data there? The data there, it says it should be on the home folder, on the data, on this subfolder. Let's print it out because I am not sure exactly where that folder is. So let's do a console log here. Or let's use this. Let's go here. Let's go here and do this trick. I'm going to be showing you a trick. So this log, this config, let's print the whole config object and then process exit 1. This is going to be executing the command and then exiting immediately without doing the rest. Okay, we have an error because this is wrapping everything. So let me run the debug so we can get the... we are not getting the config here. Awesome. So we cannot do this thing. But maybe with data dir, we get the data dir folder. Now we get the data dir folder. Awesome. So this works. Now we know where our database lives. So this is the folder where our database lives. It is on the local folder, share, and tasks. So let's go there. And here we find the tasks DB file. If you check the type of that file, it says it is an SQLite 3 database. So I'm going to be using SQLite 3. This is a command that you can download from the SQLite website. You can download the SQLite CLI to open that database. So now I can do queries on my database. I can do something, for example, help. It's showing me here the command to list the tables. So show me the tables that I have on my database. I have the tasks table, and I can do select everything from tasks. And here we can see that we have two tasks, call and email. Both are normal and both are not started. We can keep this open here. We can execute our command in parallel here. We are on codeLive CLI, task CLI. Okay. Let's execute again to create a new, let's create a new call, but the priority is going to be urgent. Now, after I create the new task with the urgent priority and I list it here, select from tasks. Now you can see that the priority has been stored as urgent. So we are storing the data in our database as we need. So what is left? It's to implementing the list command. So let's implement the list command quickly in 2 minutes. I think we don't have the time, but let's implement list task. So we are going to implement list task here. So for list task, what we need to do is perform a query to get all of the information. So this is going to be a statement. Using the client, and we will prepare that statement. Give me everything from tasks. We don't need to use template strings because we are not passing any specific argument. Maybe if we want to filter out, and then we can return everything as type tasks. So now we are returning all of the records, and it will convert those records. Instead of returning or returning the any type or the type that the all method returns, it will return those as a task. So we have the proper object to read information. And then on my list command, I can access pretty much my database with the data there. So I need to perform the import tasks dv, and then let me remove the flags. We don't need flags for this one. We don't need arguments for this one. So we don't need to parse anything. We are just listing the tasks and printing out the tasks. These tasks obviously cannot be listed as a string, so we are going to perform a dirty stringify, and then a stringify, yes. And then we can show the list as a table, so it's going to be better. So I just wanted to do this quickly. Being dev tasks list, and we will get a JSON. Yes, we get a JSON with the tasks. So now we will need to implement a UI interface to list the tasks in a beautiful way. For that, we will use the oclif table component. Oclif already have a component to render tables on a beautiful way, and it has a lot of great support with filters, with sorting, logic. So we are going to be implementing that on the next session and the rest of the logic. And I'm going to research what happened with inquirer, because inquirer should work, but I didn't want it to spend a lot of time live trying to figure out that issue. So that's it pretty much. Thank you very much for joining me. I will be creating a repo with this code. Let me create that repo right now, so I don't forget. I'm going to be pushing that code now. This is my GitHub, github.com/Julian Duque. I'm going to be creating a new repository. It's going to be called SF Tasks CLI. On this repository, it's going to be public. Let me create it. And let's initialize status. Remember, we are going to be having a lot of bad code so far, but we will fix it. Let me do an initial commit. Initial commit live. And let me add the remote. And let me push to main. If I refresh, I'm going to be showing you something cool before I go. So look at this. What happened if I execute npx oclif readme? When I execute npx oclif readme and I add the changes at readme and I push it to GitHub and I refresh, now I have the task new command documented on my repository. So oclif is also creating the documentation for me while I push this documentation on GitHub. So this project is going to be awesome when we finish it. We are just building it live, so bear with me. Thank you very much for joining me on this live session. We are going to be having a break next week because it is Dreamforce, but after it, we will continue building this project until we finish it and integrate it with Salesforce. Remember, connect with us, connect with the Salesforce developer community. Join the community on the Trailblazer group and see you on the next one. Bye-bye.